When you invest in infrastructure, right? Investment in infrastructure, power, roads, all these activities, you need long-term capital. You don't need to kind of try and get your return back in 1 week. When you want to get your return back in 1 month, you use substandard quality systems. Those things now start breaking after a year, and that whole investment goes in the bin. Then we start another campaign again, right? Same thing with how we kind of use our cars. Same with generators, right? When people go, this is a used generator, it's 200k. This is a new generator, it's 250k. Because you're so used to short-term thinking, you go, I'll go with the 200k. You might have the 50k extra in your pocket.
Yeah.
You might have it. You might not have it.
You pay more in the long term.
Or you pay more in the long term, right? So the short-term thinking affects everything that we do in our life. So that's the same thing we're facing in our industry. There's no long-term capital in the sector, or very few. All the distribution companies that are operating in Nigeria right now are in heavy debt. They can't invest in new assets in the infrastructure. They can't improve the network. So you need a whole different playbook of operation. You need to be more smarter. You need to use advanced technologies. You have to find cost-effective ways. You need to also look for long-term capital. Capital that is going to expect a return in 5 years, in 10 years. Patient capital, right? So I know it's not you go and ask the bank right now to ask for money. Get the interest rates you're gonna get. High double digit.
Yeah, I think we're getting there to 36, 37%.
Right? That's not patient capital, that's a killer capital.
It's killer capital. PDP capital.
Exactly. So you need low capital to kind of get this asset up and running. And then when you have the traction, then you can start improving the network. So right now, the reason why you don't have 24-hour electricity is purely because it's how to invest in the network. And it's how to invest in the network because the tariffs are not true. They're still too low.
They're regulated.
They're still too low. The investors can't get enough. They can't get.
And nobody wants to lose that election because if you make people pay what they're meant to pay, there'll be retribution.
Yes, exactly.
That's crazy. That's super crazy. But just even thinking about this entire power game, as an entrepreneur, there are many other realities we grapple with. You're trying to figure out how to run a company. You have to figure out how to hire. But what has been your major challenge as an entrepreneur? In terms of talent, you mentioned that we have great engineers, but some entrepreneurs will tell you it's been a nightmare finding talent, right? So in a sense, running a company in 21st century Lagos comes with its own kettle of realities.
I would disagree.
Okay.
How you structure a company is important.
Good.
One of our biggest successes as a company in PAM is how we're structured. We're structured and optimized to have the least level of staff and the greatest impact.
So you least level of staff
strength.
So in a sense, are you underemployed? I don't know what the word would be now, but maybe understaffed?
Not understaffed.
Optimally staffed,
not understaffed. I think I prefer the word optimally staffed.
staffed.
Now, that means you have to automate a lot.
It's a lean model.
You have to work on a lean model. You have to automate a lot. The previous way of structuring a company doesn't work in this century because you know why? We have a new daddy in town, and the new daddy is technology.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of the structure that they put in place was at the absence of technology.
So are you AI adopted? Like, are you using a lot of AI to transform or reduce your burn rates? How much of AI have you embraced with respect to?
I think in every individual or department in the company is heavily reliant on AI.
Do you feel bad that people are losing jobs and AI is doing it for you?
No, because you have to create more jobs.
Okay.
We create jobs by the work that we do. If more people get electricity, there's more jobs created. So we look at it from the impact perspective. Or internally,
operational,
you have to be more efficient. You also don't have much money to play around with. Right? You're dealing in an environment where there's no patient capital.
So what part of what departments in your company do you think you fully optimize in terms of HR, finance, administrative? Which of them have the AI really? helped you to navigate?
So artificial intelligence it's a double-edged sword, right? It could be a gift and it could be a curse,
Really?
right? And you need to be aware of that and aware of the limitations of that, right? So when we're applying AI, it's not really to replace the individual, but to improve the individual's talent,
Okay.
right? So there's a fundamental level of thinking that the individual has to have, right? And then obviously you use artificial intelligence to improve those level of thinking. And I think is one of the biggest equalizers, and Africa should embrace that, because the only difference that the West had in terms of
Access to data
intelligence,
has
it's
not
now
been
becoming,
democratized.
and that be democratized. That would probably what I would say. Yeah. And now, Tunde, in the middle of the forest with his laptop and computer, can access the same level of intelligence as a PhD from Stanford University. I think that we're in the greatest change of humankind.
No, we've always celebrated our ability to adopt, but let's talk about our production side. So, for instance, we see China being able to catch up with technology and compete with the West, invest tremendously, and in fact, we saw what DeepSeek did to us the other day. We woke up and realized for a fraction of the fee Americans were spending on their AI LLM models, they were doing it for far less. But Africa, if we're not playing at the level of the creation of the technology or the consumption, are we really controlling our destiny, or is still another pawn on another? We're just moving from someone's chessboard to end up as a pawn on another person's chessboard.
You know, I really love that question you asked, and the reason why is because it's always been on my mind. And it's actually a very sad reality that we're not producers, or we're not mass producers, and we're mass consumers. The world looks at Africa as a big mouth open, waiting for things to be falling in. We're just consumers. Majority of our activities are imported. We haven't invested in a lot of infrastructure and capacity to build. We're trying, but we're also still being stifled. We're like light years behind in terms of production. And I even tried going into manufacturing, right?
Well, that's a nightmare if you don't do it right though.
And it was a nightmare, right? It was a very painful activity, but I learned a lot. And I learned that.
Or do you have your raw materials, so you have to import from China too? Because most people who call manufacturing are just assembly and technology. So was yours pure manufacturing or more assembly?
No, so we do. So manufacturing is also in different contexts. A lot of times, you need to have a certain level of imported activities involved, even if machinery, even if it's some part of the value chain, it will be imported in. But you want to start from a point where you minimize your imports, right? That's kind of, and then until you get to zero import, then hopefully that's full scale manufacturing. It's very hard for you to see any product
as end to end.
That's end to end, fully integrated, locally sourced, right? So, and I really, my goal really would be to see a lot more products be end to end, but it's very tough, right? Very less free capital goes there. Need patient capital, which I talked about earlier on. The mindset of Nigeria having short-term thinking doesn't allow us to develop capacity for manufacturing. So, but we are doing it. There are entrepreneurs out there. Some part of my business is still in manufacturing, right? That are saying, you know what? Even if it's going to cost us, right? We're still going to pull our head in here.
So I know some very hard guys who are pulling this whole thing. But here is the thing. In most parts of China, you have industrial parks. You have free trade zones where you're guaranteed power supply. You're guaranteed tax incentives. Do you think that for manufacturing, our industrial parks, I know we've had several announcements of industrial parks here and there, but it looks like new government comes, everybody a new playbook. But do you think this will help to drive, if we get it right, will help to drive that industrialization as it were?
So following those playbooks, these are those basic business playbooks, and enabling an environment that hopefully makes things work. But it also needs to be the zeal, of the entrepreneurs to do this stuff. It needs to be the financing that comes with that stuff, right? It needs to be encouraging activity. But another thing I was going to say, which I think is probably much more interesting and for other entrepreneurs who are out there looking into manufacturing, and really ask yourself this question: who are you manufacturing for?